Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to our friends from all over the country and all over the world. Welcome to AVX Live. I'm Joe Gilderson, President of Corporate Audio Visual Services, Visual Word Systems, and Virtual AV. It's another week here on AVX Live, and again, we have another great guest. Today's interview is with a creative and fun-loving entrepreneur, and I'm sure he's going to have some great bits of advice for all of us to learn from. I am pleased to welcome back my co-host, Ryan Finch, Creative Director at Corporate AV. It's nice to have you back, Ryan.
It is nice to be back. I'm glad you're not having to do this by yourself anymore.
Well, I guess I'm a little concerned that you might not remember how to do this.
Well, we'll find out very shortly.
Okay, well, just let me know if I got to hit some buttons, that's all. But listen, just a little reminder about why we're doing this program. You know, our team always starts every conversation with the words experience and success and results, because these are really at the core of everything we do. We're trying to plan any type of event, whether it's in person, it's virtual, or it's some blend of the two that everybody's calling hybrid. Our expectation is that AV and technology are helping people reach these three goals. So the AV should be helping you create positive experiences. Technology should be helping you to achieve success and hit your goals. And of course, they really all should be generating measurable results. So in this series, we're going to be looking to talk to professionals across all different industries and see how technology is impacting their day-to-day lives. And the end goal is we're hoping to be able to share that information with everybody in our community so they can improve in their personal and their professional lives. Because, you know, like they say, growth equals happiness. And we got 30 to 45 minutes that we want everybody to be happy.
That's right. And remember, we're just getting started with this. This is episode 4, but we have a lot more to come, and we're really excited for it. So please do us a favor. Go check us out on our channels, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, which is where we're live right now. Give us a like. Really does help us out a lot. And if you drop a comment with a question, we may be able to answer it live. So, again, please do head over to our channels after this or during this and show us some support.
Very well said, Finch. I'm glad you did come back. That's nice. I guess you still got this. You still got this figured out. Well, listen, let's get to our special guest today. I'd like to welcome a friend and colleague, Andrew Castellano, CEO and owner of Sharc Creative. Andrew was born and raised in Westchester County, graduated from Syracuse University, and began a career with WFAS Radio. This set up a platform to build strong relationships within the community and help feed his entrepreneurial spirit. It's also probably why he has such a great podcast voice. So he makes us look good no matter what. Andrew owns and operates Sharc Creative, mostly known for Sharc-On-Hold-Messaging, which is the on-hold messages you get when you call someone's office, right? But additionally, the company produces a series of video podcasting episodes for clients, as well as it hosts its own mobile digital advertising platform, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. But if that wasn't enough, Sharc Creative also produces the Entergy-sponsored Screenings Under the Stars summer movie series, which is always popular, but of course it was even more popular during the past year in the pandemic because it's outdoors. Andrew is the co-founder of the John Gioffre Memorial Scholarship. He's running the New York City Marathon, and he's an active member of both Experience Marketing Association and the Business Council of Westchester. So please welcome Andrew Castellano.
Wow. Thank you, guys. Hey, Joe, that makes me feel real nice to come into this room with you after that lead-in. I appreciate it.
Well, I mean, you've done a lot. What can I tell you? I got tired even saying it all.
Well, listen, I'm honestly, guys, I'm honored to be on here. I know it's episode 4, but I feel like there'll be many more after me. And I really, my sincere thank you for thinking of me to come on today. I certainly have somewhat of an idea of what you're going through and what you're trying to do. And I think it's wonderful. I think so far so good. And I'm just proud to be a part of it. So thank you.
Well, great. Look, we're very happy to have you here. I mean, I think everybody knows your Sharc logo. And so I guess I'm curious as to how many Sharc images might actually be in your current screen background.
Well, there's
So if anybody,
we
if
planted
anybody
we
can count them,
planted
put
the
it right
Sharc
in the chat.
the Sharc stuffed animal, which is funny. It's I have a dog who runs around the house, so you can find that in almost any room, but he'll bring it to me all the time. So I just propped it up so you can see it, but it's typically in the room, and there's a handful of little sharks that are all around, but the one that probably counts the most is the logo, which you see up on my screen, which has been around for a while. The Sharc, the Sharc logo has been around since actually 2001. It actually started out as a different logo, but we ended up with this one maybe somewhere around 2006. I think that actual imagery you see above me is there. But yeah, thanks. I'm glad people know it. People see it.
It stands out. It stands out.
It's funny. It does stand out. Thanks. But you could never get enough, right? You have to make sure that you're putting it out there, because just when you think everybody knows you, they don't know you. There's way more people who don't know Sharc that do know Sharc. And so, I'm always talking about moving forward, and I try to find unique solutions and unique ways to even put our own brand out in front of people. So here's another platform,
right?
On AVX Live. Here I am. So thanks for another chance for me to have the Sharc out in front of you and in front of an audience.
Well, it's very fitting. It really is. You're a pro at this. But listen, how did you get into radio? And then how'd you go from radio into creating Sharc-On-Hold-Messaging?
Well, thanks for asking that. There's really not any kind of glamorous story on how I got into radio, other than when I first graduated from Syracuse, the first job I really had was in New York City in the garment district. So I was working for a family-owned business selling shirts, and whether they were dress shirts or sport shirts. And I knew I didn't want to do that for a living. It was great experience being in the city. Got some great sales experience, more or less a street fighter, if you will. But I had some friends in the radio business, and it always intrigued me. I thought there was something special about the radio. But I was always on the sales side and marketing side. And even to this day, I know you made a couple of nice comments about the podcast and the voice and all. There's so many people that are much better at the actual interview process than me. It just happens to be, and we can get into that a little later about how the podcasting piece came about. But I'm not typically the voice that's on the Sharc-On-Hold-Messaging. We have pros that do that. So to answer your question, I ended up in radio. I started working at WFAS. I think at the time I thought that was going to be a stepping stone to get into New York City, but I ended up loving Westchester so much that I just stayed there. So I made a career at WFAS for, almost 18 years. And I think the one thing that I feel like I was able to build while I was at the station were relationships, including you, Joe. I mean, that's exactly what I did. Yes, I was selling airspace and building clients and getting them on the radio and coming up with fun ways for them to put their name on the air. But really what I was doing was building relationships, whether it's Marsha Gordon at the Business Council, or the hospitals that we all know, or the car dealerships that we know, or the government. And so about 4 or 5 years into working for WFAS, I realized that more than one client would say to me, Andrew, can you take that radio commercial and put it on my phone? And the first client was a toy store, the Toy Box, who's still with me today. My friend Steve.
That's
who's
awesome.
Watching. Hello, Steve. And so he mentioned, I need you to put that commercial that you created and put it on my phone. And back then, Joe and Ryan, it was a cassette. So I turned to Jim Feldman, who was our production manager at WFAS. I said, Jim, I need you to do me a favor. Could you create an on-hold message for the toy store? I mean, he's a great client of ours. It would be good for him to have it. And so we put that together. I brought a cassette down to him, and he put it on. Meanwhile, he has his ads are running on the radio. Well, then the spring comes around. He needs us to change it. So now we have bicycles and things like that we put in there. So I go back to Jim. Jim, I need you to make a change. And then in the summer, and then in the fall, and so on and so forth. And then there were a few other clients that asked me to do the same thing. And now the bell went off. I'm like, if people would be willing to pay for this, then we have a business here. So that's literally how Sharc was born. A need in the community. People didn't know where to go to get it. We had the professional talent that could produce it. And I like to believe we had the service that was on the spot. And lo and behold, I started Sharc Creative. The ARC in Sharc is actually Andrew Richard Castellano. That's why it's not a K, and that's why it's a C. So
you just blew my mind.
I blew your mind. So there's like an unintended hidden agenda there with the ARC. But so that's a long-winded way of saying, how did I start Sharc Creative or Sharc-On-Hold-Messaging? It was out of the need from the clientele that I was working with at the radio station. And I had a wonderful career in radio, and I still love radio very much. I think terrestrial radio will always have a place. We're going to talk about digital. We're going to talk about a million other things that are available to people, but that terrestrial radio is still in the cars. People still tune in no matter what they tell you. They're still exposed to lots of local radio stations, and I play nicely with them. And I actually place business on local radio stations to this day. But it was a great marriage, right, between working at the radio station and also advertising for Sharc. So I did that for many years. And I still have an ad running on the radio now that promotes the on-hold messaging business. And the on-hold business, Joe, is very near and dear to my heart. It is really, truly the core of what Sharc Creative does. If I'm having conversations with people, if nothing else, I want them to know that we're the company that does messages on hold. Because locally, I feel like we're probably the name people would know, but they on a national level that might not be the case. But I certainly want people to know that's what we do. Sure. Among a few other things that are also somewhat enticing, I think.
Very good. Well, yeah, and piggybacking on that, so for the on-hold messaging, would you say, I guess in terms of a pandemic sense, where there's a lot less people in offices, a lot less people answering phones, a lot more of a mobile workforce, has there been a change as far? I know this is kind of another question we're going to ask you for the rest of your services, but specifically on the on-hold messaging side, has there been a change that you've seen just impacted by what we're going through now?
Without a doubt. There has been, in many ways, it's led to some more business because there are quite a few businesses, certain verticals like medical, for example, that have a higher call volume. You can imagine how many people are calling hospitals and urgent care centers for the vaccine and things like that. So I did get an influx of calls from people who said, oh my God, we really do need your services because we're putting people on hold and we currently have silence playing, or maybe that cheesy canned music that you often hear. So we've picked up some business. Unfortunately, we've lost some business too, because some of our friends that are maybe in the restaurant vertical or other businesses that have been really severely impacted, we're working very closely with them. And of course, we're here for them. And I think we've done a really good job in letting those clients know that, we're here to help you however you need it. So whether it's putting them on a pause or giving them the chance to kind of get back on their feet, we're certainly doing that. But yeah, I have found that even with people working from home, Ryan, you mentioned that, if you have a voice over IP system, we're even more applicable right now because, the person who's working from home that's connected to the phone system. And by the way, we can help people with that. If they don't have a system set up, we do that too. And that's because I have lots of connections that are in that sure. Realm, right? So we'll set them up with a voice over IP system, which now allows you to have on-hold messaging from your home. So all of a sudden, even though you may have, 100 employees all working remotely, it's just a touch of a button that gets them connected. And, right. We really, at the end of the day, we're helping make a better phone call experience. So we're bringing that professionalism to the home as long as they have the phone system set up for that. So I think we really, in a lot of ways, have been able to adapt, given, the COVID-19 situation. We've been able to showcase our services for people and and allow them the chance to have that better phone call experience, even if they're working from home.
Yeah. Well, and I'll let Joe take the next question here, but just to put a cap on that, it certainly seems like most people right now are kind of starved for a little bit of in-person and human touch. So facilitating that, I can pick up the phone and call somebody and be met with relevant information right away. I mean, I find myself like, I don't want to just chat support right now. I want to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. And that's been kind of a recurring theme for us for a while, is just to make sure that, we can reach out and immediately have our answers or questions answered. So, certainly does seem like a relevant topic at the moment. But Joe, why don't you, go ahead and take the next one here.
Just to pivot on that, we talked about this the other night, I think on one of those business council calls, where it's really all about connecting, right? I mean, you need to connect with people. And it's great. I mean, the Zoom platform, if you will, has been wonderful in that it has kept us connected. But, a phone call is nice. Pick up the phone and reach out to people.
Right.
Whatever it is that we need to do. I mean, we need to stay connected. That's how we're wired. And I do believe in my heart, we're going to end up getting back to that warm embrace again that we're all craving. But there'll be a hybrid of sorts. And so our businesses, yours and mine, I think have had to adapt to that, the virtual environment. But that's not to say that, we won't be still doing the things in the same room with people. And I look forward to it.
No, that makes sense, but adapting is just part of life,
Yeah.
In this case, it's been a little extreme, but it is what we all have to go through, especially in a business perspective, but it's the same in your personal lives. Yeah. Everybody has to adapt. But I'm curious, I guess, how you went from going from Sharc on Hold, because now you have other services, right? So tell us about the other services and how that came about.
Yeah. So, like I said, the tip of the spear is the Sharc-On-Hold-Messaging and the core as well. But what we did back in 2014, when I decided to remove myself from WFAS Radio, we then I certainly just started to work for myself under the Sharc Creative brand, and very quickly realized that people would love when the radio station would come out to them. We would do remote broadcasts. So we've worked together on many events hand in hand. So Sharc now produces Westchester Talk Radio, which has been in the marketplace for about 6 years now. And Westchester Talk Radio is essentially a podcast. I don't think I even realized it was a podcast when I started it, but that's really what it was. It's an event-driven podcast. It's live on site. So we have this sort of colorful way of making an event a little better, maybe by having the radio station, Westchester Talk Radio, come and set up a booth. So we'd have the tent, we'd have the Sharc, we'd have the van, and we have our really professional hosts who are people that I've met through, my time in radio, whether it's Bob Marone or Laura Smith or John Marino or Lisa Wexler. I mean, some really, really pros that have helped me get out in front of the audience. So we would have these folks come out to an event at Westchester Magazine or the Business Council or umpteen different nonprofit events. And we would set up like a radio station. But what we were doing is taking these wonderful interviews and then storing them on Westchester Talk Radio. So if you go to my internet station, we still have those interviews running to this day. And there's a place where you can look up the old podcast. So even back to 2014 or so, you can pull up an old podcast. And Joe, we've interviewed you a couple of times. So you're in there. You're in there. You got to look for it, but you're in there. But, we've had to kind of pivot, or I like to say transition from being audio only. And so while that platform was strictly audio with some Facebook posts while we were there, what we've had to do during COVID is, I'm not picking up my station and bringing it to you. Right. We're not mobile right now. Mm-hmm. I'm not bringing the big Sharc. I'm not bringing the tent. I'm not bringing the inflatable Sharc. I'm not bringing the van. So instead, we're doing our interviews in an environment much like this, Joe. And so what we're doing is taking our hosts, calling out to the CEOs and the politicians and all the folks in our community that do some great things. And we're asking them questions much like you're asking me. And we're essentially doing it live, but not in the same way you're doing this. We're then taking a post-production piece and we use that as content. And I think where everything is going now are these little chunkable pieces of content. You need to be able to take a chunkable piece of content and share it. So our friends in the community, whether it's the nonprofit or whether it's a private sector, it's great for them to put out their own content, but it's nice to have somebody else help them do that. And I think that's what we're doing at Sharc for them by using the Westchester Talk Radio platform. And by the way, we now have Fairfield County Talk Radio, Putnam Talk Radio, Rockland Talk Radio, Orange Talk Radio, Dutchess Talk Radio, right? So it sounds a little monotonous when I say it that way, but the point I'm trying to make is because it's virtual, I'm not sending staff, an hour away to go interview the county executive. We could do it remotely. And now we have content on all of those channels on our YouTube channel. So we have a main YouTube channel, Sharc Creative, but then it gets divided up amongst our 6, we'll call them Sharc Network radio stations. Right. The leader there is the Westchester Talk Radio in Fairfield, but we're slowly, you're going to start to see a lot more content now in those other areas. So if I have we just interviewed the county executive for Rockland. We interviewed the county executive in Orange and the county executive in Dutchess, and we're about to do Putnam, I think, tomorrow. So that content is now going to be pushed out, and we have our own unique way to push it out too.
Right. Well, it's interesting. It starts out as kind of like a what's happening. It's like you're kind of, I wouldn't say a fly on the wall, but you are literally, pushing out what's happening in Westchester right now. And that turns itself into a content machine, an archival system, and it's kind of nice to be able to fill 2 needs at the same time. One is obviously, people getting a look in at what's happening. And the other is having these raw assets that you can then use and package in different ways.
Yeah. Well said. I hope that people find what we're doing exciting. I mean, we do have quite a few content pieces that we're putting together now. So it's the nonprofit spotlights. It's the sports report. It's what's happening in the Lower Hudson Valley, the Cup of Joe political show. These are all sponsored shows, and it allows us the content. But we're also hired by, let's say, White Plains Hospital, for example, or other people in the private sector to create content for them. And if you'll allow me to tell you, I'm really excited about one that we're producing right now for 914 Inc. We're actually working on a series with 914 Inc. We're speaking with their editor bi-monthly. So Amy Partridge comes on with us. We talk with her about the upcoming episode, and we have our own unique way of then pushing that content out. So I really see this very unique way of combining the video and the audio and pushing it out. How do I combine the audio? We take the audio out of the video podcast, and that becomes the podcast.
Right.
So
2
essentially,
birds, 1 stone.
Yeah, we could take this video, right?
Oh, yeah.
We take the audio only, and I put that out on Westchester Talk Radio. So if you go to any one of our stations, you're hearing the videos, but they're on the audio only. And then there's a video component too. So we just added the video carousel on the website that's being developed as we speak. So you can go to my website to also see the videos that we do. So I'm not there's no silver bullet. I'm not saying I have all the answers. There's no way, but I do feel like we're onto something, and it excites me. I mean, I love coming up with new ways to provide opportunities for the clients. And as long as they see the value in it, and as long as I believe in it, that's really all that matters. And I do feel like I've always believed in what we're doing. That's the one constant. I think from day one, from when I was very excited about helping that toy store get the on-hold message, to providing interviews for people in the community, to now the video component and putting it out, I believe in it. I feel like it's right. So I'm going to keep pursuing that. I always say, always moving forward, and that's what we're. And by the way, sharks always move forward; they don't go back. So sharks are moving forward too. I didn't even realize that would work, right? But that kind of it does fit. So we're gonna keep on plugging away, keep on finding ways to help people, and if they find the value in it, then we stay in business, right? So that's
that's what you got to start there, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting how really technology has helped drive some of your service offerings, and how you've made that change from being on site to all those events I used to see. We'd see the van outside.
Joe, we had to be at
the Sharks here, man.
I think we had to be at 382 events together, if not. Honest to God, because we've produced, I forget, it's over 400 podcasts on site. So that, and you were at almost every one of them in some way. I miss that. I miss being in the room with your guys. I do miss some of that camaraderie. And I'm sure you do.
But that time's coming back soon. It's coming back soon.
I will say there are certainly silver linings to all of this. And, first and foremost, my heart is with the people who are impacted by this. I mean, that's, let's start right there with that. There's no doubt about it. If we could press a button and make all this go away, that would be the first thing. But it's here, and we've had to transition, and many businesses have had to transition to, stay positive and survive. And you guys are doing a great job with how you're doing it for yourself too.
I think we're all trying to find our path, and we're trying to make our adjustments. And, in our case, just like yours, we're trying to use technology to adapt, right? Yep. And I think you've done a great job with that. I know that, you helped one of our clients out, Pink Aid, with one of your video podcasts and interviews, and that helped them try to expand their market. And that's what, that's that work in the community, but you're also helping them on a business level in the same way. And but your impact in the community has really been something I know I've noticed because I've seen it firsthand being everywhere. Hey, thanks, Ed.
Thank you, Ed.
Appreciate you checking us out. Same to George and Will and Jim. But your impact in the nonprofit community is really interesting to me with the spotlights that you're doing, as well as the screening under the stars. How did you get so involved in the community like this?
I feel very blessed and fortunate to have spent the time building the relationships that I did. It's a two-way street, right? I can go out and give all I want, but it's nice when people receive it well. And so because of that, I've been able to maintain good relationships with the county, and I give a lot of kudos to the county for many years. That's partly how we have the screenings of the stars. Make a long story short, when I was at the radio station at WFAS, I helped bring back the screenings under the stars. It had existed at one time, but the county kind of shut it down. It was too expensive to do. But because of my relationship with Entergy, at the time, my relationship with the radio station, and the relationship with county parks, I was able to go to them and say, I actually have a connection to somebody who can bring in a 50-foot screen. And so it started that way, as me representing the radio station, the client, bringing in the production company and the county. But then when I went out on my own with Sharc, there was no longer an FAS to manage that. So that's another piece of Sharc that came about. So Screenings Under the Stars became partly a Sharc brand. I still had Entergy to help me, and thank you, Entergy, for everything. I couldn't really do a lot of the things that I've been able to do because of Entergy, right? They've really been my backbone. They essentially helped me and help Sharc, help the community. So because of them, we were able to then bring this to the county and say, guess what? We have our sponsor. Let's have at it. So the county was able to go out and say, we can produce 2 really nice Screenings Under the Stars at Kensico Dam. It was an Entergy Screenings Under the Stars. But then last year with COVID, this turned into a drive-in theater. And rather than do 2, we ended up doing 8. And this year we're scheduling at least 6 and probably going to be up to 8 because I can't mention the sponsor, but we actually, with Entergy unfortunately leaving the community, we now have another sponsor who actually has had their eyes on this for a while. And so I'm in the middle of negotiating that. But once that's settled, we can now announce the new screenings under the stars, which is going to be presented at Kensico Dam, Croton Point Park, and maybe 1 or 2 other places as well. Excellent. So very exciting for the community to have a drive-in theater. But to answer your question, Joe, it's a two-way street with the community. The community has afforded me an opportunity to help them, and it really has everything to do with our sponsors and our sponsors getting behind us. And of course, I'd like to believe it's our staff and our professionalism with the hosts that do what they do. I couldn't do this without them. And so the guys behind the scene, whether it's Jim Feldman or Mike Blakey or others who are producing things for us. And of course, our folks that are out in front with the microphone, putting me aside, they're the ones that really do this. And I'm very grateful for their efforts. And we have a long way to go. I mean, we're still really scratching the surface and at the tip of the iceberg, I think, on the we'll call it the Sharc Network platform, which is really all of these little unique stations. And the screenings under the stars is it takes up some bandwidth between now and it'll probably go into the fall this year. But again, sponsors make that possible. So that's how we're able to do that.
That's great. Yeah. And honestly, to the point earlier about the on-hold messaging right now, helping drive some connection in an otherwise kind of isolated time, you found yourself another niche, which is being that connector. You're connecting the sponsor with the county, with the need that everyone has, which is to do something other than sit in the living room at the moment.
Yeah. I like to say, help us, help you, help the community. That's really what we're doing, right? We're looking at sponsorships to help us help the community so that we could create this content that they really need.
Right.
I mean, people, they need the unique content. And I think that's what you're doing. That's what we're doing. We're trying to provide a unique way for them to utilize the content,
No, makes sense. But I always thought it was pretty cool. I think anything, look, I love the movies to begin with and outdoors. I've always liked driving. So I just think it's kind of a neat connection. And
yeah,
it's a fun family moment at this stage in the game as well.
Yeah, memories are made there. I love, even personally, I go every year with my kids and it's become a thing. They even are at the age now where they're picking the movies. They're helping pick the movies and, they sit on top of the car and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. So it's great that even with, still dealing with COVID, that we're able to get out in front of it and have this announcement, which is about to come out with all of the dates. And, there's a limited supply, right? There's only so many cars that can fit.
Right.
So we sell out within like a couple of hours time. But it's also about the branding of Westchester County Parks being able to put this out there. So whether you can get there or not, there's a lot to be said about the message that the county is trying to put this out there for the community. So I'm excited for the county. I'm excited for our sponsor that's coming on board, and certainly for Sharc for being a part of it.
It's a good thing all around, and I mean, that's one of the things that it's probably why you stayed here in Westchester County, because it is kind of built around the family environment, and it is built around those types of activities. And the fact that you kind of stepped up and really pushed it forward for the community is what it's all about, right? You don't just work in an area, you also live in an area, and you have to keep coming back every day. So I think that's a vital piece. But I've noticed that over the years that you've been very active in the nonprofit community and in Westchester County and Fairfield soon and Putnam and everybody else. But
our friends over at Nonprofit Westchester, they do a tremendous job, and there's lots of connections through them. And, I've made a lot of good friends in the nonprofit world. And so they need our help. And I feel like we have been certainly a help to them throughout the years where you've been in the same room. I think there's some additional color that's added when we have that presence, but now we're doing it in the virtual world. And I you asked about technology. I don't know that I really directly answered you, but it is certainly, we're using technology, whether it's through Zoom to conduct the interviews, and then the Sharc Bites, which you alluded to before, which is the mobile platform. We're creating visual pieces, banners, that then promote the event. When you open it up, it opens up to a landing page that has a copy of the video. So that's how we're pushing it out. So for the events that are coming up, I think we create a nice little slice in there to help build up towards the event. So for the pre-promotional piece, we're providing the interview and then the ability to reach out to hundreds of thousands of people by using our Sharc Bite platform, which is it's mobile display. So it's a quick creative ad that encapsulates what your event is about, or maybe it's just your company logo and information. But our staff puts together the creative and puts together the landing pages. And on one of those landing pages includes the video carousel of what those videos were that we produced leading up to the event. And then it has a shelf life, so it could live. You can keep pushing it out there. So we feel like that's another nice piece of technology that's helped us. And of course, we have the analytics, so we can show how many people clicked it. Where did they click it? What cities were they clicked in? What are their age groups? What's their gender? Are they, do they have children? So we can get into the weeds a little bit and help people understand who it was that found interest in that event. I got to believe that's good intelligence for people. It doesn't mean everybody's going to take you up on your offer. It doesn't mean everybody's going to run to your website. But for the people who did click it, and we generally get a 0.4 click-through rate of return, which is actually really good. So, we like to send these out in like 100,000 impressions at a clip. So if you have an event coming up, we'll push it out to 100,000 people, as part of the package. So there's the production piece and the ability to push it out. So to answer your question, yes, we've used technology through Zoom and some other forms of production to the actual landing pages that we create for the client. So it's almost a full service piece for the content, the production.
And just to help my understanding on it. So as far as because you just said pushing it out to thousands of people, so you're involved in not only the creative end but also the distribution at that point.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit more how that works? Because beyond say Google AdWords and Facebook,
for sure.
Facebook ads, I can't speak to much of that. So can you let us in on a little bit of how that works?
Yes. So when we find out who people are looking for, what we're essentially doing is we're buying ads or ad space on what's called a mobile exchange. And this mobile exchange has hundreds, if not thousands, of publishers on it. What do I mean by that? Men's Health, USA Today,
so other
ESPN, Sports Illustrated,
right.
So if you're after, for argument's sake, a male 35 to 64, well then, and you want to be in Rockland, Westchester, and the Bronx, well then we will push out these display ads with the background, once they click it, of your landing pages,
right,
to the behaviors that you're looking for of those folks. So I don't know that it's Joe Gilderson, but I know that Joe Gilderson may have clicked on things where he left an impression.
Right.
So I know that we can now find somebody like Joe Gilderson on an ESPN or Men's Health or whatever. So it's not an exact science, but it's precise enough that we can find people or like-minded people on the sites that you're looking for.
It's interesting, and it makes me wonder, and I think this might be something we talk about later on, but has there been an appetite thus far? Because again, on the virtual event side, what we're doing a lot of, we find that the promotion of whatever public event it might be almost gets overlooked, because typically they have their donor bases on the nonprofit side, or they have their internal people on the corporate side, and they know they're pushing out to them through the channels that they've been pushing out to them. But there's such a wide opportunity to cast a wider net, and that's kind of what we've been saying for a while. And so have you seen an appetite thus far on groups who are just trying to get their virtual event in front of as many eyes as possible?
Yeah, well, we've actually worked on one together. I think it was the Boys and Girls Club of Mount Vernon, right?
That's right.
Last year,
Yeah.
which proved to be, I think, one of the more successful events for them, even though it was virtual. And we did do a Shark Bite campaign leading up to that. Now, I'm not sitting here taking credit for the success of the program, but
it's okay. You're the star of today's program. You can take.
But the program was successful. But we also were able to, and I love that you said cast a wider net, because that's what we did. So you can push out your own content, right? And you should be on your Facebook page and on your Instagram and on your LinkedIn, but you're limited to just that, into that vertical. So why not reach out to folks that you may not necessarily be reaching out to, but kind of would like to? So that's really what this is doing. It's like boosting a post. It would be like boosting a post on Facebook, let's say, but
not limited to that one channel, basically.
Correct. And so now we're going to be on hundreds of publisher sites. Now, I want to make sure I'm clear about this. We don't have the ability for you to say to me, hey, Andrew, I want to be on Sports Illustrated. We can't just drill down on Sports Illustrated for what we're asking. In how we package it, it doesn't work that way, but it works in that way where you can be on so many different sites. So at the end of the day, what we're concerned about are the eyeballs to your landing page that we created for you.
Right.
So if we're going to send out 100,000 more people for you to reach, we want to have an effective click-through rate there. Now, it's interesting. I can't always say how much it's going to cost, because sometimes that inventory is more expensive than other times. At the end of the year, it might cost a little more to get the ad in front of the people that you want, or during political season, depending on who you're going after, it could be higher or lower. And for argument's sake, if you're a soft drink company and you want to be in front of a certain audience, and Coca-Cola has decided to do a huge campaign right when you want to do it, well, guess what? It's probably going to cost a little bit more money for you to clear that inventory.
Right.
So we have a certain cost per thousand that we will go out there with, but we have to be careful with saying it's going to be specifically this much. So we usually go by an ad spend, and it may or may not be, the 100,000 impressions. It could be a little more. It could be a little less. It really depends on the inventory, right? So that's how we kind of operate with it. But we're running right now with, some folks in the community that you know of, and we did a nice campaign for Winter Wonderland. We've done some really nice campaigns for Robeson Oil, Entergy, of course. We've done things for Lapolis Electric. We worked closely with lots of big companies in Westchester and beyond. We did a campaign for Morton Williams when they opened up in the city. We did a few campaigns for even some national companies going back, where we could drop in on the areas that they wanted to be in across the country. So we're not limited to just Westchester with this platform. And that's actually the beauty of all things Sharc right now. The on-hold messaging, that's global. We have a client that has 168 locations across the world. So we create it here, but it's working everywhere.
Well, absolutely. And
same thing with the digital pieces. The same thing.
We're seeing a lot of that, obviously, on the virtual event side as well. Whereas, we're somewhat limited by geography in certain scales of event. This, for us, on the virtual event side, we were able to service, like right now we're working on a program for a group on the West Coast that only has ties on the West Coast. We had a group down in Miami we worked with last week. So same for us, where we're not limited by geography. And I think that kind of goes for most groups in this all virtual sense. And so for your, casting that wider net, right, that certainly becomes a pretty critical piece, because why not go after the more eyeballs, right? Absolutely.
It's available to us. It's there for us. We just have to be creative and innovative. And it reminds me of an expression that I've heard. We're all, to one degree or another, experiencing pressure, right? There's some pressure to get some stuff done, but pressure is the backside of triumph and glory, right? So even though, and this is just sort of
that one a banner. That was good.
I think, I
is that yours?
I can't remember. I can't remember where I found that, but I love that one, because so many people are feeling, it's not comfortable to have to change, right? I mean, you're so used to doing things a certain way. Now all of a sudden, we're thrown into this, situation as everybody was last March, and you're scrambling and you're trying to figure out, how do I transition? It's uncomfortable. It's where most of the growth takes place,
Right.
and there's pressure there. But, again, the backside of that is triumph and glory. And that's where it just will feel that much sweeter, right? Once we get there. And for everybody out there who is experiencing this, I think you know what I mean. And it's not an overnight success, right? You're still probably navigating through it, but boy, it's going to feel so much better when you're there. And I'm not going to say that I'm there, but I do feel it. I feel the enthusiasm.
The tipping point, eh?
And Joe and I were talking about this earlier, even a sense of like, well, there's longer days and there's the smell of the fresh air and the spring and baseball's in the air. And I feel like there's more optimism as people get shots in the arm. And, from a business standpoint, I feel like we've really done a lot of good things in this time period to help set us up for more of a hybrid world. And, I'm up for the challenge. I'm working on it, and I'm excited about where we are, but I'm more excited about where we're going.
Well, I think that's a phenomenal way for us to kind of conclude today's discussion. I mean, it took me a lot to figure out how to spell triumph. I don't have no idea if I actually spelled it correctly. Spelling is not an AV guy's real strength, production guy's strength. But no, I think what you're saying is what it's all about. I mean, everything you've mentioned today for us is greatly appreciated. You're talking about, how you've had to make adjustments and how you've used technology, but it's not just about that. It's about how to build up your network and be a part of something that's bigger than you, right? Except for that shark, because that's pretty cool. I'd like to have a big giant shark in my backyard, I think. But
you could.
So if you're looking for a place to rest,
we could work something out.
Okay. I can take care of the screen though. I'm okay with the screen and the projector. But no, I mean, what you're saying is right on point. And the fact that you're talking about casting a wider net and using the digital technology to reach not only specific people, if you want, or those behaviors, like you're saying, but you can reach people in different areas.
Yeah.
And you're not confined.
Right.
You may do a lot of your work here, but it's because you want to do that, but that's not limiting you in any way.
Not at all. It's opening
I
up
think
to a
that's
whole
great.
new world. Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I think sometimes people need to be reminded of that.
Yeah.
That you're not limited. You're only limited in what you do to yourself, really.
Yeah, precisely. And, and it's important to set goals too, right? You have to think about where you want to go. I mean, another one I'll throw at you that I heard that I love is, when you don't have goals, you find yourself running up and down the field and never scoring, right? So you need to set the goal. So it's one thing to be innovative and come up with new strategies and things, but you've also got to set goals for yourself. Like, whether it's, if you're going to exercise more, well, then you got to think about, well, what am I going to do every day? How much time am I going to put into it? And am I going to do it every day or 6 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever? Or if it's making sales calls, or if it's casting a wider net, well, where am I going to cast that wider net? Is it tri-state area? Is it East Coast? Is it national? You got to kind of think those things through so that you have a goal and you can start scoring, right? Otherwise, you could be running around and never get it done.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody wants to do that right now. So,
no.
but listen, it is right. All that running. I mean, that marathon experience gave you all that.
Never again.
It's too much running for me. But listen, Andrew, thank you for being a part of AVX Live today. I think everybody's really gained a lot and learned a lot. And casting a wider net is the end all be all for today's discussion, I think.
I'll go with that.
But thank you, Andrew.
Joe, thank you. Ryan, thank you. Keep up the great work. I mean, it really is. You guys are, you're top notch. You've always been that way. It's good to see you here, but I really look forward to seeing you in the room again, and keep up the good work. I'm looking forward to building with you as well through all of this. So thanks.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thank you, Andrew.
All right, guys. Take care.
So Ryan, I mean, I think we learned a lot today.
We certainly have. We certainly have. And Joe, I know you had a lot of banners there and some excellent quotes. Any that you would bring to the top, so to speak?
Well, I think, some of the things that, Andrew really has done a lot of promotion over in his life. And he's a natural entrepreneur. He's a natural relationship builder and connector. But I think the fact that, he's focused on moving forward at all times. We joke around about the shark. He was saying about the shark, not swimming backwards. But in reality, you do have to keep moving forward. And I think that's good motivation for this particular period of time. As far as, promotions and for clients and opportunities, I think keeping things in chunkable shark bites, I guess we'll use the term today.
Size, eh? Yeah.
And then, sharing that, but where are you going to share it? Where are you going to put that out there? And then that's when we got into the casting a wider net.
Right.
And I think all of that really goes together. And the fact that he was talking about, how he really puts a lot into developing relationships and being a part of the community. I think that always takes precedence over all of the digital and things we're doing on the technology, because again, technology is supposed to help us reach those goals. So, I know I got a lot. And of course, I didn't know anything about triumph and glory being on the backside of pressure. So.
That was a good line. I like that. Oh, very nice.
But either way, listen, Ryan, why don't you take us out of the show today? You've been gone for a few weeks, so why don't you take us out?
All right. Well, I think what I'm supposed to say here is that we'd really appreciate a return view. Come back Wednesday at 1:00. We will certainly have another great guest, and we're going to keep doing that every week. So in the meantime, subscribe, like, comment, share, all of the above would be super, tremendously helpful and appreciated to us. And we look forward to seeing you back here next time.
Sounds great. We'll see you soon.
All right.